Hello and welcome back to the Master Division of the International Championship. In my first game of the season, I sadly lost in a game where I got punished quite heavily for missing out on the cannons. And the game that we are taking a look at today is a four-player game against Lech and Majondor, so two players who haven't finished a game so far, and against Wolves, the player who has had the best start with being able to win that three-player game against me. And now, without further ado, let's take a look at the game. I'm playing in the third position this game, and first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that there's some lab synergy with Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Sid Meier and Albert Einstein. There is no spaceflight however, but there's the internet. We have Chaplin and Fleming as well as the Hollywood for some theater synergy, and then there's Mandela. We have no Red Cross. In H2 we have the ocean liner service together with Maria Theresa. We have both James Cook and the Suez Canal for some colonization payoff. We have James Watt but no railroad. We have Nobel but no Newton. We have two military action leaders with Napoleon and Robespierre. One military action leader in H1 with Jan Žižka. There's Barbarossa and Genghis Khan to help with the strength. We have Saladin as a very solid leader, Gutenberg for some lab and printing press synergy, Isabella for some colonization. Maybe also Barbarossa is nice in a colonization game. And then there's also Michelangelo together with maybe St. Peter's Basilica and the Machu Picchu. We have both of the strength wonders, Himeji Castle and Great Wall. And then there's the Silk Road, but no Universitas. Lech is playing in first position, and he opens the game by taking Hammurabi. Majondor is then going for Boudica and the Urban Growth. And now it's my turn, and I maybe go for something a little bit unusual here. I could, for example, just take the pyramids. And then there's at least some hope that I, for example, could get Ashoka at the next turn. And I do think Ashoka and Pyramids is quite a nice combination. Also, I'm playing in third position. In the later seats, I think Ashoka works a little bit better, as you have access to the cards from H1 a little bit earlier. And that could be quite fine. So, for example, if I take Pyramids and Wolves, for example, takes Frugality and Aristotle, then I will get Ashoka at my next turn, and that would be quite a fine start. If he goes for example, Ashoka and Frugality, then I will get Aristotle, maybe an even better combination with the Pyramids. The Pyramids, of course, being a very strong wonder, and so that could be fine. There's one problem, and that is that there's a chance that Wolves could also, instead of taking maybe Ashoka or Aristotle plus Frugality, of course he could maybe also just go for the Stonehenge, but there is a chance that he maybe could also go for Moses, Hanging Gardens and Frugality. Moses and Hanging Gardens being a somewhat synergistic combination, making it easier to use all of the additional population of Moses in a nice manner. And then if he would take all of those cards, and all of those are relatively cheaply available for him, so I thought it is a possibility, then Aristotle would be discarded during Lech's turn, Ashoka would be discarded during Majondor's turn, there would only be Caesar left for me, and the only leader that could be revealed from the deck would be Alex. I don't know if he would be available for one civil action for me. And that wouldn't be that great. I mean, at least I would still have the pyramids, I would still have an economically strong wonder, but because of that, I actually went for something different at the end, and I decided to go for Aristotle and the Hanging Gardens. With Aristotle, I just for certain have a strong leader available, and then I get the Hanging Gardens, of course a wonder that's maybe not ideal, but I somewhat like it. If there are no ravages, then I think it's actually quite a fine wonder. And I do think there's a bit of synergy for the Hanging Gardens here. We have Michelangelo who is in the game, we have Barbarossa, who I think is maybe even a more important synergy, as you can quite nicely get some activations out of him if you have the Hanging Gardens and get the additional food. So there's some synergy for the Hanging Gardens, and also generally I think Hanging Gardens plus Aristotle is quite a nice combination, because ideally you want to finish the Hanging Gardens rather late in H1, because you don't need the happy faces earlier, and Aristotle with scoring additional signs when taking technology just wants to take technologies anyway, and with that also with the additional signs makes it easier to just start investing into some technologies, and then only at the end of H1 maybe finishing the Hanging Gardens. I get a leader and a wonder already at my first pick, meaning at my next turn I can maybe take a yellow card with the 3 civil actions that I'm having thanks to that. And with all of that, I was actually willing to go for that combination. Going for pyramids is probably also fine, there's at least a chance that I get Ashoka, but if I only get Caesar or maybe Alex, I wouldn't be too happy about it, and so I at the end decided to go for Aristotle and Hanging Gardens here. Of course, I could also go for Moses Hanging Gardens, but I like the combination of Aristotle and Hanging Gardens quite a bit more. Wolves then goes for Ashoka here in the frugality. He could have also gone for pyramids and Moses or something, but he plays in the last seed, and Ashoka can be quite a strong leader in last seed. And then H1 starts, and Lech is now able to get the pyramids, so that's strong for him. With Hammurabi, maybe he could have also thought about a Stonehenge, but the pyramids are just so solid, so he decides to go for them. Takes the rich land with additional action from Hammurabi. Majondor will then go for the Stonehenge, elects Boudica, builds a mine, increases his population, doesn't go for the lab first, as he has plenty of signs available from the Stonehenge and potentially also from Boudica. Now it is my turn. I start by building a mine, increasing my population. I could think about taking the Engineering Genius here. I also could think about taking Yanshishka, but I don't like it without having a tactic. Especially, I think Barbarossa could be quite strong for me here, as he also works nicely as a transitional leader, works nicely with the Hanging Gardens. Who knows, if I get an early iron, Michelangelo could be very interesting. I don't want to go for Yanshishka without knowing what tactic I will be able to work with. And also the Engineering Genius, I do think it's just not the best action for myself. I'm playing in a 4-player game, I don't need to consider that much what I leave available for my opponents. And especially with Aristotle, you need a lot of civil actions. And with that, I just rather wanted to elect Aristotle, take the urban growth so that I can save a resource when I build my second lab, maybe then already at the next turn. I draw the medieval army tactic, that's nice, so that I already have a good tactic in hand. Wolves elects Ashoka, takes Yanshishka, with that has already an additional resource production. He could have built a third mine now, going already up to 4 resource production, but at the end he decides to rather increase his population, maybe staying a bit more flexible and also having a free population in case there's development of warfare or religion revealed. Also, he doesn't take the Colossus here, as he maybe sees the Silk Road coming down the road, which is quite a strong wonder to get as a first wonder. Lech uses the actions of Hammurabi here to just take both copies of Engineering Genius. With that, he can finish the pyramids at the next turn by paying only 1 real resource, and he also builds the second lab to get some science production going. With taking those cards, Saladin drops down to 2 civil actions for Majondor, and he just takes them immediately, wants to have the additional action. I do think the additional action works quite nicely with the Stonehenge. Stonehenge and Hammurabi is a strong combination, and with that Stonehenge and Saladin of course also works quite nicely. Then he just increases his population with his last civil action to then use his remaining actions efficiently. I actually decided to push here. The Raiders, I have a tactic already in hand. With that I maybe have some chances, also with the Hanging Gardens, which will help me being able to put more population into the military. For now, of course, I don't know whether I get the Knights, but the Raiders is also not the most influential event. And also another important reason why I wanted to seed here is that maybe some developments could help me here a little bit, especially those who give me additional science. Because if I get, for example, development of trade routes, 1 additional science, then I could just take the alchemy and develop it and then maybe go for an upgrade. Or if there are 2 resources revealed, I could go for something interesting where I take the alchemy, take the theocracy just to get the 1 science, develop the alchemy, and then thanks to the urban growth I could even build an alchemy directly. So I was hoping for either some science or some additional resources. None of that is revealed, instead of development of warfare, which at least I can take advantage of. Taking the free warrior, with that I also can't really build a second lab, and with that the turn that I kind of want to go for also became a bit more clear for me. Because before I thought maybe I can just take the alchemy in hand and build a second lab or something. But now it's a bit awkward. Of course I could maybe build a step of the Hanging Gardens, take something, maybe Michelangelo, to have him available as a leader or something, but I don't know whether I get iron. For now I will start investing into the alchemy. And so at the end, while it is not ideal, I decided to take the theocracy here. I didn't really plan on going for it, even though of course it can be an option, but especially with the happy faces from the Hanging Gardens, I don't think the theocracy is really a great option here. But I just took it here for the 1 science, so that I then afterwards can already increase my science production and spend my actions efficiently instead of having to take something for 2 here. With being able to develop the alchemy and go for an upgrade. As you can see, I actually don't use the urban growth here. I do this because that might help me potentially at the next turn to more easily get out of corruption. We can see at the end of my turn after my production that now that I have not used the urban growth, I can get out of corruption by just increasing my population. While if I would have used the urban growth, I have to increase my population and then maybe still build a step of the hanging gardens. If there are 2 additional resources revealed, it could even get a bit tricky to get out of corruption. So I was hoping that, that could help me with my corruption issues, and hopefully I will be able to use the urban growth soon when I build a second lab. I draw the immigration here, which I was happy to see, as that can turn out to be quite a nice event for me. Wolves takes the second copy of Alchemy in hand, with that has the full Ashoka bonus now, takes the Silk Road, builds the second lab, delays his third mine again, but has already 3 resource production thanks to Ashoka, also builds the first step of the Silk Road. Lech finishes the pyramids for only 1 resource. With that, he isn't even out of corruption. He then can get out of corruption with increasing his population, takes the swordsman, with that has a military technology in hand, and interestingly also goes for Michelangelo. He doesn't have any iron yet, but he has additional civil actions, which is also helpful for Michelangelo. And generally, from what I have seen from Lech, and I have encountered him now in 2 seasons, it's not a rare sight that he goes for Michelangelo. I've seen it from him before, so I do think he values that leader quite highly. And I mean, Michelangelo definitely has a lot of potential. There are still a lot of wonders that can be revealed, so let's see how that play will work out for Lech. Also, there's the Great Wall already coming down the road, which he maybe can go for, with having now also taken the swordsman. Majondor takes a copy of iron here, builds a step of the Stonehenge that gives him just enough science to go for the iron, and thanks to the additional civil action from Saladin, he can also go for an upgrade. Doesn't get any of those yellow cards, but just makes sure to get his production going, reveals the Legion tactic to maybe keep some other cards in hand. Now it's my turn, and I just continue pushing. The immigration should be a nice event, so I decided to go for that. The development of trade routes is revealed. That was I was happy to see that, because with being able to increase my population in additional time thanks to the additional food, I'm able to just use my actions a bit more efficiently this turn. So I was happy seeing that development of trade routes. I increased my population 2 times. And I could build an HA lab now, but I don't really want to do this, because I at the next turn can maybe just build an H1 lab directly, and with Aristotle additional civil actions are quite useful, might even lead towards me being able to take an additional technology, with then results in additional science, which is what I would get when I just build the HA lab now, so I didn't want to do this. I could build 1 or 2 steps of the hanging gardens if I want to use my actions efficiently. The cards that I can take here are somewhat fine. I don't want to take Swordsman for 2 with having the medieval army tactic. The drama could be an idea. If there would be Bach and Marlene, I maybe would be inclined to take it. There's Antoni Gaudi, Chaplin, Fleming, the Hollywood. There's some synergy. Maybe it could be fine to take it. Maybe some players would go for it here, with also scoring in science with Aristotle. But I didn't like it too much. I could go for a copy of Richland or another copy of Urban Growth for some resource, which is fine, but maybe also not that much needed in short term, and with Aristotle it could be better to use the civil actions more efficiently, so I could maybe think about building 2 steps of the Hanging Gardens, but then there is another problem, and that's also the reason why I only built 1 step of the Hanging Gardens, because now that I built 1 step, I still have just enough resources with the Urban Growth A to build an alchemy directly at the next turn. If I build another step while I use my civil actions efficiently, I then would be dependent on the developments whether I will be able to do that. So I spent 1 civil action here to take a card. I could think about a drama, but at the end I went with the Richland, hoping that it will maybe accelerate how quickly I can go for some economical upgrades later on. I draw some cards. I could of course maybe consider Isabella with the inhabited territory, but I rather wanted to leave myself open for maybe Barbarossa or Yeah, I guess mainly Barbarossa. There are not that many leaders left actually, so have to be a bit careful. But actually, all of my opponents have now committed to a leader, so I can just wait for Barbarossa and then ideally maybe build all of my medieval armies with him and with the food from the Hanging Gardens. Wolves increases his population 2 times. Builds the third mine, has now finally that mine built, is it for resource production, and then takes the breakthrough, which will give him potentially even 3 signs with the Silk Road bonus. Lech goes for a copy of Iron here. That's of course very important for him with having Michelangelo. He then elects also Michelangelo as he is now, as he wants to go for the Great Wall here now. Can save a civil action, scores a resource, and then he develops the iron and actually builds a 4th iron mine. And with that has maybe the ability to really build up some very strong production. Do think that's not a bad idea. Also he gets a happy face from the Great Wall, which maybe supports that additional mine, also with, of course, helping with the strength. So an interesting place here by him. And let's see how that will work out. But I mean, Michelangelo certainly has some big potential now that he's at 5 and soon maybe even more resource production, and also with some strong H2 wonders being the game. There's certainly the potential that he can build up something strong here with Michelangelo. Now it's Majondor's turn. He upgrades a mine, upgrades another mine, takes the breakthrough, the swordsman with having the legion tactic. I was happy to see him taking all of those cards because that means that the knights will fall down to 1 civil action for me. At my turn, I again decided to push, this time the Crusades. I have already committed to 1 strength event anyway, and I will now be able to get the Knights with the medieval army tactic, so hopefully I should at least not lose to the Crusades and might have even a chance to win that event. For now I'm even the only player who has pushed, so I have some really strong knowledge so far about the events to come. So I pushed the Crusades, the development of planning is revealed. The option for the development of planning are markets, politics and religion. As you can see, I actually take the free temple here. But I don't think that's a clear decision here, because with having the Hanging Gardens, the happy face from the free temple might not be that relevant for quite some turns, and maybe, for example, taking 2 additional resources could be quite helpful, maybe finishing the Hanging Gardens earlier, maybe being able to go for an additional knight a turn earlier or something. So the additional resources could be maybe even the correct choice here. At the end I still went with the religion, it's still passively just producing a little bit of culture, and also I've seeded the immigration into the deck, so me taking this religion might also help me winning it, or maybe preventing other players from participating on getting a population. And with that immigration in there, I at the end decided to go for the development of religion, but without that event being in there, I do think it could be the correct choice to just take some additional resources from the development of markets, as the Hanging Gardens will cover the happy faces for a while, but there's also no Pierre in the game, so going for arenas is not that great. Maybe I want to go for religion at some point anyway, and then I can at least save some resources on the long run also, so I do think at the end it's fine here to take the religion. Then, thanks to only building 1 step at the turn before on the Hanging Gardens, I have now enough resources to build my second lab, going up to 4 science production. And with being on 5 science, I have also the ability to take that copy of Code of Laws and develop it, going up to 5 civil actions, scoring another science with Aristotle, and then I have still 1 civil action left to take the Knights, scoring another science with Aristotle, also having enough science to get into Knights in case that will be needed. I keep the knowledge of the ancients and the medieval army tactic. I draw the call to arms and the rebellion. A rebellion, another nice event that I can maybe push into the deck. Wolves this turn goes for the alchemy, develops it with the breakthrough that he gets an additional science from with the Silk Road, goes for 2 upgrades, is also at 4 science production now, and then takes the theology in hand to have the full Ashoka bonus again. Lech seeds, the only first player apart from me that pushes an event into the deck. The development of science is revealed. He gets some additional science from the development of science, finishes the Great Wall, giving him a little bit of additional strength. Could have also gone for some iron upgrades first, but as you can see, he wants to go for the Michi Castle here. And I mean, with having Great Wall and the Michi Castle, he will have quite some help for the strength. Can maybe use those wonders to defend himself and then maybe go for some more greedy lines in H2 with still having Michelangelo maybe going for some even more wonders. So yeah, I was thinking, oh, he might be onto something and he might potentially be able to build quite a strong position here. Interestingly, he builds a warrior here, and that will also reveal the fighting band tactics. Interesting that he is willing to spend those 2 resources, because that, for example, could prevent him from going for an additional upgrade at the next turn. Maybe he was afraid that the event deck could already flip before his next turn if he stays on 2 strength, if maybe a lot of his opponent's seeds. Maybe that could even be an indicator that he himself has actually pushed the strength event into the deck. Either way, he is putting a little bit of effort into building this warrior, and maybe at the cost of going for an upgrade early or something. Majondor sees and opens the development of Civil Life. He will use it to increase his population, develops the swordsman with the breakthrough, builds a warrior, upgrades 1, is now at 4 strength, takes the irrigation in hand for 2 civil actions, interestingly, takes the urban growth and develops the warfare. Now it's my turn. As you can see, I seed the rebellion into the deck. At this point I was a bit unhappy to see that Barbarossa isn't on the row yet. Genghis Khan isn't really doing that much for me. And yeah, it might be that I have to wait a little bit for Barbarossa, and I was hoping that he will be revealed soon and that I might be able to go for him at the next turn. First I seed the rebellion into the deck. The development of crafts is revealed. And thanks to the development of Civil Life, I'm actually able to increase my population here, which is maybe not ideal in the sense that I still plan on going for Barbarossa, so using my food now to increase my population is not ideal. But on the other hand, I kind of want to increase my strength this turn to be prepared for some of the strength events that I've seeded. As said, Lech put some effort into getting stronger. Maybe he has seeded the strength event himself, and so I decided to go for that. And also, at least with finishing the Hanging Gardens, I will still get some additional food, so that I hopefully will still be able to use Barbarossa maybe 2 times at least. So I developed the knights, I built a knight. As you can see now, I don't have enough resources left to finish the Hanging Gardens this turn, and there are not that many cards left, so I had to be a bit careful and take a look how likely it is that the age might already end before my next turn. But I thought it should be extremely likely that I get another turn, because when we take a look at Wolf's civilization, he has only 4 civil actions, he has heavy corruption issues, so he probably won't take a lot of cards. When we take a look at Majondor, he still needs to finish the Stonehenge, then he has only 2 civil actions left, also won't be able to take a lot of cards, maybe wants to increase his population and build another swordsman to get stronger also. Only Lech can maybe take some cards, but I thought it should be very likely that I get another turn. Now this turn I decide to go for maybe a bit of an interesting line, but I do think it might be justified here. I actually, first of all, reveal the medieval army tactic, but I take the reserves here for 3 civil actions. And you might question yourself, why do I go for that reserves here? And it's mainly with having Barbarossa in mind. And both resources or food could be relevant here, because I could, for example, finish the Hanging Gardens at the next turn. Maybe if Barbarossa drops down for 2 or something, I could then elect and take Barbarossa, play the reserves for resources, and then still go for a knight. But also, I can maybe just finish the Hanging Gardens, not go for a Barbarossa activation yet, and then play the reserves for food, which will make the difference on being able to go for an additional Barbarossa activation if there is no change by the events. So an additional Barbarossa activation is worth quite a lot. It also helps me being prepared for strength events, generally being stronger. And with that, I was actually willing to take the reserves here, even though it's quite expensive. I could have taken a copy of Iron, some other cards maybe. But the thing is also, if I take too many cards from the row, then there's also the danger that the age might actually end before my next turn. It's maybe still not likely, but it's then more possible. And so, because of the reserves maybe meaning an additional Barbarossa activation, and with potentially also allowing to go for another knight already the next turn in case it should be needed. I decided to take them here for 3, even though of course that's really not that efficient and maybe not an ideal way to play. I still have 1 civil action left. I could already build a step of the Hanging Gardens, having more free civil actions at the next turn, but I actually decided to go for the Warfare here, which could be interesting. If I go for 2 more Barbarossa activations and develop the Warfare, I might actually be a little bit threatening. I draw more cards in H2, which is important, and I have some good science production score, another science with Aristotle, so it just seemed worthwhile. And also I was looking at that Masonry that is coming down the row. Depending on how the things are looking at my next turn, it could be an idea to build the 2 remaining steps of the Hanging Gardens with the Masonry, an option that I could take away from myself if I build the 2nd step here already. Yeah, as you can see, I don't take the iron here, but the next things that I want to do is finishing the Hanging Gardens, go for some more knights, or 1 or 2 more knights with Barbarossa, and then the iron is quite late anyway, so paying 2 civil actions for it here was something that I didn't really want to be doing, especially because I thought that wolves might not that easily be able to take it here for 2 civil actions, and then I might just be able to get it for cheaper at my next turn. Wolves this turn goes for knights, builds 2 knights, but doesn't have a tactic yet. I can maybe copy my medieval army tactic at the next turn, going up to 10 strength. Sadly, no Barbarossa revealed. I was really hoping that I might be able to get him for something like 2 civil actions at the next turn, but it's looking like I might need to wait for him another turn. Lech goes for some more units, for some swordsman upgrades, is now at 7 strength, takes then some yellow cards. Interestingly, he takes the patriotism for 3 civil actions, which I guess could allow him to finish the Magic Castle and then maybe build another swordsman, even though if he loses the 2 yellow tokens, he actually doesn't have a happy population, so an interesting choice here going for that patriotism. Majondor this turn finishes the Stonehenge, increases his population, builds a swordsman, and then takes the monarchy. Now it's my turn, and I decided to not push here, as I'm one of the 2 weakest, could get hit by raiders, which is actually a bit of a painful event for me now. I actually don't get stronger, but maybe I have a chance that the raiders aren't revealed before my next turn. And I will at least get stronger than wolves, but I would still be in danger of raiders. So you can see Barbarossa isn't revealed, so I need to wait for him until the next turn. And yeah, then the question is what to do. I mean, I want to finish the Hanging Gardens. I could finish the Hanging Gardens and then just take the iron, develop it, use the rich land to go for 1 upgrade. I do think that could be an interesting line, just getting some iron production started, but it has some problems. First of all, with that play, I'm not getting stronger at all, meaning I'm vulnerable to quite a bunch of strength events immediately on Wolf's turn. And also I'm potentially even in danger from Majondor, from an aggression, and maybe he could try an aggression. I was not that much afraid of it, but it certainly could be a possibility. And also it's late in the age, and if there's an early coal available, it could be quite a bit better than getting into a late iron, so it would also be a bit of a commitment, and maybe it could be beneficial to delay it here. And with that I decided to, instead of going for that line, go for the masonry, develop it, build the remaining steps with 1 civil actions, having the masonry developed, and then I still take the iron in hand, and I develop the warfare here, so that I'm not the weakest, so that I'm not in danger of an aggression. As you can see, at the next turn I will be at 4 food, I will lose the 2 yellow tokens. If I play the reserves for food, I'm at 6 food, and then I have just enough food and also resources to go for 2 more knights with Barbarossa, using him nicely as a transitional leader, getting 2 activations out of him. Of course, it's not ideal that I don't get a civil action back, but maybe there's at least a chance that he will fall down to 1 civil action for me, but there might also definitely be the chance that he will stay on 2, and that's of course definitely not ideal for me. At least Aristotle did quite a nice job. I took 7 technologies with him, so I scored 7 science, which is definitely quite strong, even though of course one of the technologies, the theocracy, is one that I only took for the science, not because I wanted to use the technology. H2 starts. At least Barbarossa is the next card revealed from the deck, so there might be a chance that he falls down to 1 for me. Wolves offers an open borders agreement to Majondor. Both of them are now... Wolves is now in 4, Majondor is also in 4, he has the warfare already developed, so that makes sense for both of them. Wolves goes for the Code of Laws, to not be stuck on 4 civil actions any longer, can then go for an upgrade to theology, and with that also gets out of corruption. With copying the medieval army tactic, goes up to 10 strength and is now the strongest. I'm not the weakest, so I was hoping to not get hit by anything bad here. Lech doesn't see it, finishes the Magic Castle, takes the Machu Picchu and the irrigation, so he continues his wonder building with Michelangelo, can increase his production even more with finishing that wonder, and yeah, with having the irrigation also will have his food production covered. Now it's Majondor's turn. He just needs to take one card, then I would be able to get Barbarossa for one. Sadly, the cards in the row are not the most exciting ones for him. But first of all, there's actually the vast territory 1 revealed here. And I was willing to go all in here, sending all of my units. With Barbarossa, I would be able to rebuild them extremely efficiently. So I was really hoping that maybe that could be enough to win it. I would be extremely happy winning it for 3 units here, especially with the Suez Canal being the game. But as you can see, at the end, Majondor is the one to win it and has to at least send 2 units away. But also a good deal for him, even though, of course, he can't rebuild those units that efficiently as I could have done. He starts going for some food production here. Increases his population with the additional yellow tokens that he's gotten now. The irrigation might be more suited as a long-term solution, and also he doesn't need the happy face now with those additional yellow tokens for a while, so he doesn't want to stay weakest or maybe even in danger of an aggression, especially with the open borders agreement from wolves, so he decides to destroy that religion here and rebuilds the swordsman to be competitive in strength. Then he takes the frugality, so he takes a card from the row, but sadly not sadly the one that would have been discarded anyway, meaning Barbarossa stays in 2. Nonetheless, I have to go for Barbarossa here. I will elect him. I can go for 1 activation. Now I could go for another activation, playing the reserves for food, going for another Barbarossa activation. Again, I could have the option to just develop the iron and go for an upgrade with the rich land that I'm having. And I do think both of those options could be fine. If I play the reserves for food and go for another knight, then the question is how to use the last civil action, which is not that clear. Maybe I could go for the monarchy, maybe I could develop the iron already, but as said, maybe not committing to the iron could be quite nice. At the end, I actually decided to take a card here, and I decided to go for James Watt. And it's a bit of a gamble, not a clear-cut decision, but I do think it has a lot of potential. I have neither upgraded my farms nor my mines, so James Watt has some really big potential. Of course, I have also a copy of iron in hand, meaning there's another player who is competing for the coals, but that player is wolves, and wolves is playing right behind me, so I have quite a bit of a higher chance to get the first copy of coal. After going for 1 more Barbarossa activation, I want to have a new leader anyway, so it would be really ideal if I get that activation and afterwards the first copy of coal shows and I can go for some very quick upgrades and build a strong economy with Watt. It's of course a bit tricky in the sense that I have this copy of iron in hand, and if both copies of coal are late, or if the first one is taken by wolves and the second one is late, then I don't really have the option now to go for the iron, or at least it would be a big waste of my potential from James Watt. So now this iron will basically be stuck in hand and I'm dependent on the timing of coal, but nonetheless James Watt has a lot of potential here. If I leave him to wolves, he could go for him, and then he has that leader with a lot of potential. The first copy of selective breeding might be taken away by wolves, but the thing is that both Lech has irrigation with Machu Picchu, Majondor has irrigation, so I'm very likely to get a copy of selective breeding at some point. I was hoping that I have good chances to get the first copy of coal, and with that I was willing to go for James Watt here. Majondor actually took the strength from Saladin, meaning sadly I'm not in a position to win the Crusades here, but at least I'm not part of the Raiders at the moment. I was very happy to see that I draw the International Trade Agreement here, which I can offer at my next turn, but very early. Wolves does an interesting decision here. I mean, it's a bit of an awkward position for him. He has some difficulties getting out of corruption, could potentially just go for a farm upgrade. Maybe he should just do that, but he decides to destroy this farm here, build a knight, get another tactic with the Anshishka going, more culture production, is the strongest now, maybe even a little bit threatening. But he also is only at 1 farm now, is producing minus food now. He will take the selective breeding, so he can maybe upgrade that farm, but dropping down to 1 farm is just something that can cause you some issues, so I'm not sure about this decision. Maybe it could be better to just upgrade a food and stay a little bit low on strength for a while, because I do think that can really cause some difficulties dropping down to one farm here. It will take a while until he can rebuild the second farm, and at this point it might already be quite late in the game, and then being low in population in H3 can be a real burden. So it gives him short term some advantages now, but I do think it can on the long term be a bit problematic for him being now on one farm. He then builds another step of the Silk Road, but is missing one resource to finish the Silk Road at the next turn. Lech will this turn upgrade one mine, takes the team sports, takes the revolutionary idea, could have taken the Conmon, but he rather wants to have the science, which I think makes sense, and then develops the irrigation. Thanks to the revolutionary idea, could still go for a copy of Conmon if one should be available for him at the next turn. Majondor seeds, and as you can see, the historic territory is revealed. And I was willing to bid one unit here, I think also even a knight, because it's of course the thing that I don't really need this happy phase at the moment, even though there is of course still the immigration coming, so that makes it's even more certain that I will be part of it, and that hopefully none of my opponents will be part of it. And I wanted to go for one more Barbarous activation anyway. Of course I'm losing a little bit of strength, but I mean on the longer run this happy phase might be useful. I get 6 culture, and I can rebuild just very cheaply with Barbarossa, so at the end I was fine bidding here, and actually all of the other players pass, so I'm at the end able to win that for 1 warrior, which I was happy about. Majondor this turn goes for Nobel. There's an ocean liner that he could go for, but he decides to pass on that here, instead increases his population, upgrades another farm. I mean, he has a fine amount of population income here. Now it's my turn, I'm the weakest, I don't want to push, but I also have a really nice alternative. I can offer the international trade agreement. I want to get additional resources here, maybe being able to build up my stuff more quickly, especially I have the ocean liner service available here. And I thought, yeah, I have the masonry, that's just really strong to get that early, even though I haven't improved my resource production, but at least I get an additional one now with the pact. And also if I don't take it, Wolves has the Silk Road, he can't take it, meaning I would leave it available for Lech. And I didn't really want to do this, so yeah, at the end I decided to go for the ocean liner service here. But first of all I will play the reserves for food, going for another Barbarossa activation. Now I might not be able to go for another one. I could even elect James Watt already, but I didn't really see a reason to do that. It might always be that I just get some more food going. And then I have 4 civil actions left, and that's just enough to take the Conmon here and the ocean liner service. And I do think both of those cards are extremely strong for me. If you remember my last game, you might of course say, wait a minute, he is skipping the cannons again. And yeah, of course, taking the cannons here is also the cannons also a card here that I would really like to have. And in the game before, I do think I was maybe a bit too greedy, but I think the ocean liner and the Conmon are just too strong for me here. Maybe I could hope to get the Republic, I guess. But Wolves might want to go for the Republic with just having enough science for it, and Lech might go for the Conmon, and then I don't know when I get my next government form. That also might cost me a lot of value. I do think that would be a greedy play as well. And the ocean liner with the masonry is just so strong. Of course I have James Watt, maybe I could say I just elect James Watt, making space in my hand, take the cannons, not go for the ocean liner. But the ocean liner service is just still extremely strong, and I would leave it available for Lech, who can just get another extremely strong wonder with Michelangelo. There are at least 2 more copies of cannons, and so I decided to skip the cannons here, and I was hoping that I don't get as heavily punished as in the game before. Then I draw War and the Terrorism. Wolves seeds, and the Raiders are revealed. Sadly I'm part of it, I'm losing the tiebreaker to Majondor. It's actually a bit annoying, I'm losing 2 resources, which is quite a bit costly for me here. Wolves takes the Republic, develops it, takes the reserves, takes that copy of cannons, takes this urban growth to just get some useful cards going here. Now it's Lech's turn, he takes another copy of cannon, and I was a bit worried because the other copies of cannons are now showing immediately on the row, and if Majondor takes that one I immediately have missed out on the cannons, and I again might get punished here a bit, so I was a bit worried. And I was even more worried when I saw Lech revealing the defensive army tactic. I thought by myself, Lech, what are you doing here? Because if he doesn't reveal the tactic and the cannons will actually stay on 3 this turn, because I think he will just finish the Machu Picchu now, with Majondor having 5 civil actions, with there being a Harvard College, some strong yellow cards, and architecture, he might not take the cannons for 3. He might go for a bit more of a greedy line. Maybe he would take it anyway, but now that Lech revealed the defensive army tactic, probably to keep some other cards in hand, Majondor kinda has to take the cannons here. That's extremely strong with the tactic being available for him. And not only that, he will also be able to copy to the tactic soon and then might be able to go for quite a bit of strength very soon. And I was very, very worried. I was not happy at all to see Lech revealing the tactic. Also, he has now the tactic with the Great Wall. I have now missed out on all of the cannons. And I didn't like the development at all. At least the cannons stay on 3, so Majondor has to pay a price for it, but with the tactic being revealed, I thought he will certainly pay that price. And yeah, Lech, what are you doing? Yeah, I guess had some important cards, and for him it's of course not as bad, as he has a nice way with the Michikastu to defend himself. At least I can punish him here with the rebellion. He will lose 2 civil actions with having an unhappy worker. And of course, Majondor is taking the last copy of cannons, increases his population, builds a swordsman. At the next turn, he can just build 2 cannons, copy the tactic, and have an enormous amount of strength. At least he would be missing 1 military action then to also declare war, but nonetheless, things might be getting very, very dangerous here. I still need a bit of time to set up a strong economy with the ocean liner and James Watt, and I might get disrupted before I will be able to do that. So it's a bit problematic here. I seed here. Now I have to remember what I seeded. No, it was not the Reds. I'm actually not sure what event it was. Maybe I will remember. What event was that? I'm actually not certain. We will maybe see it. Also, you can of course go back in the video and see what cards I had in hand. I probably will remember it at some point. I know it. It was the Pestilence. I know that I will get an additional population from the immigration. I will get a lot of additional population from the ocean liner service, especially wolves, but also Lech might get hit quite heavily by the pestilence, so I decided to push it into the deck. The immigration is indeed the event revealed, giving me an additional population. Sadly, I lose 2 resources to the razors. At least I still have just enough to finish the ocean liner. At the next turn, a copy of coal is sadly not available. I go for the constitutional monarchy here. I build 2 steps of the ocean liner to get out of corruption, and then I just take a bunch of yellow cards, 2 efficient upgrades, the urban growth, so that I hopefully will be able to get into coal very quickly as soon as that card will be available for me. For example, if a coal is available, I could even finish the ocean liner service at the next turn, elect James Watt, and thanks to James Watt I have just enough science and just enough resource left to go for an upgrade with an efficient upgrade, or I say then delay the ocean liner by another turn and go for 2 upgrades immediately, or even 3 with the rich land. So if the coal is available, I could really up my resource production quite a bit, potentially even going for 3 upgrades with all of those yellow cards that I'm having in hand here. I draw some cards here. At least I have 2 wars drawn, meaning that if Majondor goes for a lot of strength, those wars are not available for him. Wolves seeds and opens the Crusades. At least I am not losing that event. Wolves steals some culture from Lech here. Then the Wolves finishes the Silk Road this turn, takes the strategy, takes the wave of nationalism. Now it's Lech's turn. He placed Revolutionary Idea, and he goes for an interesting decision here, because he could go for the Conman, but he actually goes for the Republic. He is on 2 military actions. He won't get a military action leader because he is going for Maria Theresa this turn, and there is no strategy left, meaning he is actively deciding here to play on 2 military actions for quite a while. But the additional science saved in his position is probably worth quite a bit, and more importantly, the civil action is quite relevant immediately this turn, as we will be able to see, but nonetheless, it feels quite a bit greedy, not going for the Conman here. Of course, he has Great Wall anti-magic castle to protect himself, but the additional military actions are also important to draw more cards, especially in H3 to get some impacts. But of course, an additional civil action can also create some value, so Lech goes for the interesting decision here, goes for Republic instead of the Conmon, can then take the Harvard College, can take and elect Maria Theresa, and has still one civil action left to upgrade his farm that gets him out of corruption and increases his food production by 2, which is just enough to increase his population at the next turn, meaning that he can build a cannon at the next turn. So that one last civil action here is quite relevant. Maria also a leader that I think will be quite strong for Lech. So I do think the additional civil action is quite important this turn. Nonetheless, long term it could of course be problematic, the decision of him having committed to the Republic here. Now it's Majondor's turn. He seeds, the scientific breakthrough is revealed. He goes for the cannons, builds 1, builds 2, and copies the tactic. Lech, what have you done? That is now looking quite dangerous, and I can only hope that maybe the others also struggle a little bit to get stronger, but Lech at least has a relatively straightforward way of getting a bit of additional strength going. Then Majondor goes for the justice system. Thanks to the scientific breakthrough, he has enough science to develop that already. It takes the engineering genius. What are the wonders left that he can use it on? I guess those could be some interesting wonders. Now it's my turn. I'm not the weakest, and I know that the pestilence could be on top, or is one of the next 2 events, and I kind of wanted to reveal that wolves doesn't have a free population, Majondor doesn't have a free population, Lech, if he loses a population now, doesn't have a happy population to put into cannons very easily. So I just thought opening the pestilence now has quite some consequences for all of my opponents. The question is what event to push. The terrorism doesn't really work that nicely. Refugees could backfire very heavily. Historic territory I don't really need with the happy faces. I considered to just push it and let one of the others have it, but I at the end decided to go for the knowledge of the ancients, which sadly helps out Lech quite a lot. He has low science and lots of wonders. At least he will get more science production now with the Harvard College. But I also felt like he has quite a strong position, can maybe defend himself. Maybe it could be hard to compete against him anyway, but of course it's also a bit early to call that. But at least, for example, Wolves has only an H1 wonder, Majondor only 1 wonder at the moment, so at least I'm getting a bit more value than they do. But sadly Lech will get a lot of value out of this. But at the end I rather wanted to push this than the historic territory. Maybe it could be fine to push historic and just let one of the opponents win it. But here I decided to push the knowledge of the ancients. And there's indeed a pestilence revealed. Sadly there's no coal in the row. I think I might have been willing to delay the ocean liner here in order to go for 3 coal upgrades. I do think that would have been quite strong for me. Sadly both copies of coal are relatively late here. And yeah, so I finished the ocean liner. Increase my population, and actually because of the raiders, or maybe I miscalculated, I actually don't have enough resources to going for the ocean line and 1 coal upgrade was not a possibility. I miscalculated. I for a moment thought it only cost 4 resources to build the last 2 steps, but of course that would have cost 5, so if the coal would have been available, I definitely would have just gone for 3 coal upgrades instead of finishing the ocean liner service. Sadly that's not a possibility. I elect James Watt here to make space in my hand, take the selective breeding, develop the selective breeding, use the Ridgeland 1 to go for 1 upgrade for free, just making sure to use that yellow card, making sure to use my actions some way, and then I just take the breakthrough and again just use my actions. I build that 3rd lab with the urban growth, get a bit of additional science production. I hopefully have enough population to support it. There are also quite a bunch of lab leaders in the game, so I was hoping that it might be fine just building that lab and getting this bit of additional science production going, just using my actions somewhat efficiently. But I do think this turn could have been quite a bit stronger if there would have been a copy of coal on the row. Then I draw some cards, a colonization card, but sadly that 1 colonization card is not enough to defend against Majondor. Wolf seeds, the cultural influence is revealed, which gives Wolves the most culture, Majondor the least. I'm only getting 2 culture out of it. Wolves uses the wave of nationalism this turn for 5 additional resources. Takes the Rifleman, develops the Rifleman, goes for 2 upgrades, develops the selective breeding, goes for an upgrade so that he doesn't have famine, but it might now take a while until he can increase his population again. Or actually, I mean, he has 2 reserves. He can already increase his population at the next turn with the frugality even 2 times. But he is also quite low in resource at the moment, so rebuilding a second farm as a selective breeding is somewhat expensive for him. Lech seeds opens the freedom of movement. And thanks to the pestilence, he has now to destroy a mine in order to be able to build that cannon, which is at least something for me. He then plays the patriotism, and together with Maria's resources can build a cannon for 3, making it that he has still enough resources to finish the Harvard College here, which I think is a very big improvement for him. And then he also takes the scientific method, maybe because of the lab leaders that are in the game. Now it's Majondor's turn. I was very nervous and I kinda expected to get hit by something bad here. And no, sadly I do get hit by the blunder here. Lose 4 resources, 1 food, I have 0 resources left. Now a copy of coal is coming down the row, but with being on 0 resources I can't go for an upgrade even with my efficient upgrades. So that is quite problematic now. Majondor can use the additional resources to go for some lab upgrades while still having some resources left. He had to lose a swordsman to the pestilence, can rebuild that one now, still gets 3 draws, still is at 29 strength. I can't increase my strength really. Did he use the freedom of movement, by the way? He used it to put a worker from... he didn't lose... he lost a lab to the pestilence and then moved a swordsman to philosophy to rebuild that lab? Wait... okay, he did some funny stuff here. He could have just lost the swordsman to the pestilence, but instead he decided to do some funny stuff, lost the lab to the pestilence, and then rebuilt the lab with the swordsman, basically making it as if he would have lost the swordsman. So, of course, always fun if you can just mess around a little bit. Lech used the freedom of movement to put brass to iron. Now it's my turn. I really wanted to push the arms industry here. I will take and also develop the rifleman here. There's the potential of getting 4 additional resources for me, and in my position that's just could give me such a big boost, so I wanted to have that in the next event deck for certain. Sadly, the politics of strength is revealed. Majondor gets 5 additional draws, making it a lot more likely that he has more aggressions, maybe some war over territories. I don't get any draws, I don't get any more defense cards, so I was not happy to see that event. Also, I also had, of course, to think about the freedom of movement, but with 0 resources, my options were somewhat limited. I still think I found a nice way on using it, because I actually moved in agriculture to a bronze mine. With the ocean liner service, the 1 selective breeding farm might be enough for a while. Actually, it's a bit similar to the first game of the season. There I also had the ocean liner service and destroyed 1 farm at some point and just stayed with 1 selective breeding farm. Now I used the freedom of movement to put it into bronze mines together with the international trade agreement pact. At least I'm at 5 resource production now. So in general, also with me missing out on cannons and then the defensive army tactic being revealed and causing some troubles, this game sadly is quite similar to the 3-player game that we have seen in the first game of the season. I can use the ocean liner service to increase my population here, and 2 cards that I just wanted to take for certain here is this rifleman and the patriotism. I just need the resources and the technology. I maybe can at least make use out of the conquistadors tactic, even though that's definitely not ideal. Then I have a full hand, and I will actually, with my last civil action, upgrade a lab with the efficient upgrade anyway. So I don't necessarily need to develop the rifleman in order to make space in my hand. But the thing is, the arms industry is coming, and there could be a chance that it is already revealed before my next turn. And so I decided to just develop the rifleman and then go for an upgrade, because the cards that I can take here, I don't really need them. Could maybe take Opera in hand for Chaplain or Fleming, but it might just cost me some hand space issues, and I rather wanted to have the additional science here from the lab. Of course, I'm losing the efficient upgrade to maybe go for some quick coal upgrades at one of the following turns, but at least I have the additional science production. I don't take a copy of coal here, but I was hoping that wolves will just take that copy of coal, and then the second one should still be available for me, hopefully. So then I draw actually no cards because I got hit by the politics of strength. And things are getting more uh, complicated because wolves, probably in order to trying to deflect any aggression or wars directed in his direction, offers Majondor more strength so that his wars and aggressions are more likely to succeed or more threatening against me and Lech. Majondor being now at 33 strength. Wolves develops the strategy, gets a bit stronger, increases his population, takes the rich land, the frugality, and the coal. Can maybe go for some coal upgrades soon. Is missing a science for the next turn, but can also maybe build a farm, even though he actually has some unhappy face issues when he now loses the 2 yellow tokens. Now after Wolf's turn we are also at the beginning of age 3, so we can maybe take a quick look at the overview. And that's an interesting position here. And it's of course the position is heavily dictated on Majondor having 33 strength. Lech, what have you done? Sadly Lech is somewhat fine with all of that. So yeah. Lech has built all of those wonders with that, has maybe the strongest economy, but he is only into military actions, has still some issues with his population. So that could still be a bit annoying for him, but I do think he has generally a potentially strong position. Sadly, he will also get a boost with the knowledge of the ancients. Majondor has a solid economy, his production is fine, doesn't have the most civil actions, but has a lot of population to work with, and of course is just very threatening, so he has gotten just some additional draws. If you just get something out of that strength, he might be in a fine position. But for now, he is behind in culture, so he needs to do some stuff in order to catch up. I do think my position is problematic here. I'm basically very much dependent on what I get hit here by. If I'm somewhat ignored, I might be able to build up some quick coal upgrades. Maybe I could even get lucky and get an early oil, and then my position with the ocean liner service, 6 science production is fine. But as I can get hit by more aggressions and wars, and as I might be the most likely target, things are looking dangerous for me here. At least I have produced some culture already, and the ocean liner service can't be destroyed, so I will be getting more population, which maybe at some point will be helpful for me. That's an issue that Wolves is having. He decided to destroy a farm earlier on. Now he is stuck on this amount of resources. He has lots of civil actions, but is also still in 3 resource production. Is also quite behind in strength. Strength can maybe go for Napoleon, but he also has some issues, has some potential with his many civil actions, but also has some issues. He has for now the culture lead, so it's interesting how this game will be going. Maybe Lech could win here just with his economical advantages. Majondor, if he manages to do something good with the strength. For me and Wolves, I think things are looking dangerous with both of us not easily being able to adapt the defensive army tactic. Lech increases his population, scores a science and a culture with Maria Theresa, develops the team sports to get some happy faces, increases his population again, builds a cannon, goes up to 24 strength with being able to sacrifice with the Michi Castle. He should be somewhat safe from an aggression, also from wars, because he can threaten to build 2 more swordsmen with the Great Wall, with being able to sacrifice. Now it's Majondor's turn. He just got 4 additional strength from the promise of military protection. I was very much afraid of what might happen now, and sadly, as he also got those 5 additional draws, he is now going for that war. Lech, what have you done? Wolves, what have you done, giving Majondor the 4 additional strength? So he is declaring that war against me now. At least isn't increasing his strength even further, but the problematic thing is he is getting the first copy of Air Force, a very early copy of Air Force, and with stealing those yellow tokens he soon might just be able to build some Air Forces, and if he gets the right cards could apply even more pressure. I for a moment thought even is it time to already resign, but that would be way too early. Wolves also has some problems, or even if I get hit by something bad here, at least I have a bit of a culture lead. Majondor still has to find some things to catch up, and I can maybe hope that Wolves gets also hit by a big wall at some point. So I definitely, I had those thoughts for a very short time when I just saw the war declaration, but when I looked at my turn and at Wolf's civilization, it was completely clear for me that that would be way too early. I, during my turn, decided to cede the historic territory just for the 2 culture and because I thought I need to hope for something good. Of course, I could get hit by a strength event or something bad, but I just wanted to get a culture for pushing and hoping that something is revealed that maybe helps me a little bit. And there is actually something revealed, economic progress, which of course gives some of my opponents more value in terms of food and resources, but at least Wolves gets even less than I. But the 3 additional resources will give me a bit of additional strength and will actually make it that I lose 1 less yellow token. So that's certainly a bit of a help and gave me a bit of hope. I can now play the patriotism, build 2 knights, upgrade 1, sadly only 1, I'm missing 1 resource to go for 1 more upgrade. Warrior to Rifleman, I can reveal the Conquistador's tactic. Before the economic progress was revealed, it was a bit of a question for me. Should I, in order to get more strength, go for the navigation and develop it, which is cheaper civil action wise and science wise, or do I go for the satellites? Now that the economic progress was revealed, it was not really a question any longer because the 1 additional strength from the satellites compared to the navigation actually makes it that I lose 1 less yellow token. I'm at least losing only 2 yellow tokens here, which is still not great of course, but that's at least something. Then I have 2 civil actions left. Maybe I actually did a mistake here, because I will take the coal in hand. Maybe I could just take the organized religion, the professional sports could be taken away, and I will lose some yellow tokens, I will have some unhappy face issues, but there also might just be the hope that the organized religion is still available at my next turn, and of course I also kinda need to hope that I can stabilize myself and that I can still build up some production. The thing is, I will take the coal, I could just develop it, but I decided against it. First of all, it's a science commitment, maybe I could use the science to defend myself, in order to threaten an air force, maybe go for military theory if I need more strength. But also, I might need to hope for something good here, and something good could be a copy of oil coming down the row. So I didn't want to do this commitment. With not wanting to do this commitment, maybe I could also just take the organized religion, but if there's no oil, it could still be good to go for 2 coal upgrades, even though it's a bit late with James Watt, it's probably still worth it. So I decided to take the coal here, but I just floated the last civil action. Of course, it could also bite me not playing its civil action efficiently here, but I would think it would bite me even more if there's an oil on the row and I had already spent 5 science into the coal. I was hoping that maybe I could get lucky here and draw a defense card so that I don't have to fear another aggression by a Majondor. Sadly, I don't draw any, but instead 2 H3 tactics. Wolf Seeds, the knowledge of the ancients is revealed. I get more science out of it than Majondor and Wolves, but Lech gets by far the most science out of it. And also, while Wolves only gets 1 science, the 1 science actually makes the difference for him between being able to go for coal already or not. So sadly, that event at the end did turn out to be quite useful for him, or at least opened up another option for him. He will go for that 1 coal upgrade, goes for Napoleon, gets a bit of additional strength, uses the urban growth to build a theology, builds the knights, is now at 21 strength, has the classic army tactic, making it that he's at 25 strength, sadly making him maybe somewhat safe from an aggression. He actually only needs 1 H2 defense card, meaning if Majondor wants to go for another aggression, I might be the most likely target. Lech offers a peace treaty to Majondor, but Majondor doesn't want to limit his options on also hitting him, which is at least something good for me to see. Lech then increases his population 1 last time with Maria Theresa, uses her resource 1 last time because now he is taking the engineering, electing Einstein, developing both engineering and scientific methods, scoring some culture, and also increasing his science production. There's actually corruption. Also, not increasing his farm means that he can't easily increase his population at the next turn and build another swordsman, so it's maybe a bit greedy here, but he decides to just Einstein 6 culture, the additional science production is just quite strong, so he decides to take that little greedy route here. Majondor at least steals only 2 yellow tokens from me. I thought might turn out even worse for me. But I could still get hit by an aggression or maybe by a follow-up war. Majondor has the air forces, so I was again afraid of the politics action. And sadly, I do get hit by another aggression here by the spy, losing 5 signs. Majondor having now even more signs to work with. And also Majondor going for an interesting decision here. He's actually taking Steve Jobs, and there would have been also Bill Gates available for him. He could have just taken Bill Gates. It's an early Gates. He gets some additional resources, can maybe build a third lab at some point and get a lot of production going. But he goes for Steve Jobs here. He has, of course, lots of science. There will be Nobel Prizes. He has a decent amount of resources anyway, enough to easily build 2 air forces, maybe even a bit more. So he might be fine with the resources, even without Bill Gates. And I mean, might just be able to develop a lot of technology. So it's an interesting call, and also not also relevant. The happy phases are actually useful for him. He doesn't need to invest into organized religion or professional sports. He just gets enough happy phases for now. And with that, he decides to go for Steve Jobs for 3 civil actions over Bill Gates. Definitely not something that you see any day, especially early in age 3. But yeah, in this situation, there are some arguments to it. But of course, the additional resource from Bill Gates could also still be quite strong. But yeah, he goes for Steve Jobs, develops the air forces, builds one, builds another one. Could have maybe developed the organized religion to already get a Nobel Prize, but he might be able to get more Nobel Prize at the upcoming turns. And of course, he builds 2 air forces, meaning he's at 53 strength, and with him being willing to miss out on draws in order to achieve that, I thought it could be likely that he has already something available again. Now it's my turn, and I decided that I just need something going here. Maybe I overdo it here, but I just wanted to get every bit of culture that I can. And at least Wolves has revealed this classic army tactic. I was hoping that I will then have a clear path on getting a bit of additional strength. I will build a professional sports. I was hoping that there's maybe a chance that I will at least not lose to the refugees. Maybe also the event deck is moving slowly. So I just wanted to get the 2 additional culture for seeding here. Even though I could get hit by a strength event, but politics of strength is out. Refugees are now only in the deck. And luckily I also don't get punished, and so just added 2 additional culture here. I was now happy that I didn't commit the 5 signs into coal, because with getting hit by the spy, that would have taken the ability away from me to go for the professional sports. I then could have still gone into the organized religion, but I think the additional strength from the professional sports is just quite strong. Of course, I might be able to get into organized religion more cheaply, so it is a consideration here, but here I decide to just go into professional sports. Maybe leaving the door open for oil still, but I actually won't be doing that because I have 3 labs. Those are only H1 labs, but going for Bill Gates and electing him still gives me a bit of a resource boost. I'm now at 8 resource production. It is somewhat respectable. I get the resources immediately, meaning that also helps me in my ability to defend myself. And yeah, so I just thought Bill Gates is just strong for me here. If I don't go for him, then Wolves has computers in hand, could just go for him. And Wolves, I was thinking, is maybe the one player where I still can have some hopes of overtaking him. His low population income is problematic for him in his ability to build up some strength long term. At some point he will also lose Napoleon, so I didn't want to give him Bill Gates, which might give him a big boost. I thought it could be difficult to do anything against Lech and Majondor, even though, of course, at least I still have a culture lead before Majondor, but yeah, I'm still quite behind in strength. I could get hit by more stuff. At least Majondor has not that much strength that maybe the other players are now also a bit in danger, at least. At least that is what I was hoping. And yeah, so James Watt sadly didn't work out that nicely. The calls were a bit late. The time when I finished the Ocean Line, I think that would have been the perfect time for a copy of Coal to be revealed. And now I sadly am only in Bronze Mines, but at least Bill Gates helps me out a little bit here. And while hoping for an early oil was something that could maybe really boost me, there's also 1 copy of computers left, of course, which could make Bill Gates potentially quite strong. I still have a copy of efficient upgrade, so I was hoping that maybe that could be something. With the last civil action, I don't have that much to do, and as you can see, I just take the organized religion, and the main reason for that is that maybe it could help me win a Nobel Prize at some point. I don't need the happy faces, but yeah, just for Nobel Prize. I do draw 2 wars here, and a defense card, which sadly is not enough to defend myself, but with those wars I was thinking that maybe there's something possible in this game still, because if I get a bit lucky and get maybe my hands on air forces soon, then I might be able to copy the classic army tactic, build 2 classic armies, maybe with air forces at some point, maybe go for 1 or 2 wars, which maybe gives me something to do and something to hope for. So I was happy about the draw, as it could open up some doors here. But first of all, I of course need a copy of Air Force. Wolves takes the efficient upgrade, the urban growth just takes some yellow cards that he will even be able to use with the Silk Road bonus. Interestingly, also takes the military theory. Probably a bit as a hate draft from Lech, making it that Lech doesn't get that card, of course, also saves him a bit, as then Lech might be more vulnerable to maybe aggressions or wars from a Majondor, so that's probably a position where hate drafting is a thing, and also, of course, he can maybe just get 2 additional strength in case it is needed. Lech seeds an impact in there, and the civil unrest is revealed. He actually goes into oil here, upgrades 1 time, takes 2 military techs, upgrades a 2nd time, has now some very big production going. Isn't building a swordsman, as said, not upgrading this farm, makes it that he's 1 food short now, meaning he is now a bit vulnerable, and I was hoping that Majondor, if he wants to play for first place, if he has an aggression, will maybe now rather hit Lech than myself. And I was very happy to see that Majondor indeed hits Lech. If I would have lost 2 labs, that would have been such a big setback that I maybe would not be able to recover from. But Lech loses now some stuff, and Majondor gets 7 additional resources out of that raid. Misses out on some draws again though. He takes that copy of computers, maybe at least making sure that I don't get my hands on that, so also maybe wanting to do some damage to me, but of course it might also just already be worth it for himself. The 1 additional happy face that he gets when he upgrades is of course meaningful soon, and also with all of those science production, he might be able to go for some Nobel Prizes now in the remaining turns, maybe finish the internet for a decent amount. Also, what I was very happy to see, there is actually the 2nd copy of Air Force available for me. So that's of course a card that I wanted to grab immediately. I will start my turn by using the Ocean Liner service. I didn't want to push the terrorism, as I might just lose a building to that. Of course I might have just also lost the professional sports to the raid, but still it would have been of course quite painful, or even more painful. I take the Air Forces. I can build a rifleman to get out of corruption here. And then I take just both copies of reserves. So I have now Air Forces, and with those reserves I might have enough resources to actually go for some more riflemen and Air Forces. And if I go for another upgrade here and copy to the classic army tactic, which actually makes it that they drop down in strength for now, but I have 5 military actions and I have enough resources at the next turn to declare war, build a rifleman and an Air Force, and Wolves is in a position, especially if he doesn't get Air Forces, where it's not really clear if he can beat that. So that's also the reason why I wanted to copy here. Of course I'm dropping down in strength, but I just definitely wanted to make it that I can go for a war at the next turn, and yeah, I was really interested to see how Wolves will play his next turn. Will he make it that he will he find a way to prepare himself for a war here, or can I maybe actually declare a war already at the next turn? I draw the impact of population. I was very happy about the draw because that's actually a good impact for me, especially against Lech and against Wolves. Wolves actually also goes into oil here, develops it, upgrades a bronze mine, is now at 9 resource production, now at 11, takes the reserves and the urban growth, but with having invested science into the oil, he doesn't have enough science to threaten to get into air forces, and yeah, can maybe go for another classic army potentially, but is not threatening that much strength, and I should be able to actually go for the draw the next turn against him. Lech offers a peace treaty to Wolves. He has not enough military actions to do anything aggressive himself. Wolves is a bit in trouble at this point, maybe anyway, so it makes sense for both of them to just take the additional culture. Lech builds an arena, builds some multimedia, so he's playing it somewhat greedily. But he's now building the swordsman, and with the Michi castle and the ability to go for those big units, and maybe at least threatening to go for military theory, maybe it's enough to be safe. Also, he can maybe take and play a patriotism with the Harvard College. Majondor doesn't go for an aggression against me. This, of course, was still something that I was afraid of that could potentially happen, but instead he seeds an event into the deck. The arms industry is revealed, which gives me 4 additional resources here. Wolves, however, gets also 4 additional resources. Majondor goes for the democracy this turn. That means that he again doesn't get a Nobel Prize, so the Nobel Prizes haven't been working out very well for him, but the democracy, of course, is still giving him a nice boost. He takes the revolutionary idea, the modern infantry, the reserves, upgrades another lab, and then increases his population. Now it is my turn. Of course, I had to check again if wolves can do anything, especially now that he got some additional resources, but with not having enough science to get into the air forces, I thought, and maybe it's worth it to take some risks anyway. I decided to go for that war against wolves. I can build an air force and a rifleman. I could have, if I play both reserves for resources, I could have even built another air force, but I'm missing the military actions to do that. And I could even just take the fast food chains here for expensive. Maybe that could be worthwhile, but I decided against it. It would cost me famine, and there's at least a chance that I might get it at the next turn, because Wolves has to defend against the war, and the fast food chains will at least stay in the 3 civil action area for him. Lech could take the fast food chains, but it's very costly for him with having taken that many wonders, and also he also needs to be careful about not getting hit by any wars, so he might rather maybe go for modern infantry or something. And Majondor has the internet lying around, so I was hoping that there's a reasonable hope that I can get the fast food chains for cheaper, and so instead I rather wanted to take some cards. I took the Revolutionary Idea, another copy of Revolutionary Idea. I first thought that maybe I want to take both copies of Revolutionary Idea and the Democracy. Just being able to go for the Democracy. But I decided against going for the Democracy here. I thought about just taking one Revolutionary Idea and Democracy, and I will also take the Engineering Genius, but if I take both Revolutionary Ideas and Democracy, the fast food chains falls down into the 2 civil action area for Wolves, which maybe makes it more possible and more easily possible for him to take it. And I didn't want to do this, and I thought it's not clear if I want to go for Democracy anyway. I have a second war, and I can go for another Air Force. I was hoping that I will actually be able to go for that second war. And I might be able to get a copy of Military Theory or something, and also there are Nobel Prizes, which doesn't work that nicely with the Democracy, so I just took 2 copies of Revolutionary Idea, played the reserves for food to not have any famine. I still have enough resources to build an Air Force, and I actually have enough resources to build an Air Force at the next turn, and if I should get a fast food chains, I can take them. I'm at 1 plus 7 if I build an Air Force, so I'm at 8 plus 4 is 12, plus 4 is 16, so I'm now in a position where I could declare war, and I have just enough resources to then finish the fast food chains in 2 turns. And if that should happen, maybe things are actually not looking that bad for me. And also another reason to not take the Democracy and both the Revolutionary Ideas is also that it could be just great if the age doesn't end before my next turn, so that I don't lose the yellow tongues that would cause famine issues for me more quickly. And if I indeed should get the fast food chains, I need all of my resources, so I can't really build an additional farm. And also it would mean that I just can get another population out with the ocean liner service, so also to make it more likely that the age doesn't end, I think it's maybe better to not take too many cards here. And I have now 1 civil action left, and I can't really do a lot with it, and so I just float it. Wolves goes for the cannons, interestingly. Plays the reserves, can increase his population, destroys a mine, builds 2 cannons, takes the tanks in hand as Sid Meier, and has the Napoleonic army tactic, going up to 39 strength. He has now the tanks in hand, so he's not enough science to go for air forces. There's still a copy in the deck, but he has enough science to get into tanks. And he has enough resources to build 2 riflemen and 2 tanks and reveal a modern army tactic. I've drawn 1 copy of modern army, but the second copy I don't have knowledge of. And so he could threaten that. However, if the age should end before his turn, then he's losing the military action of Napoleon, meaning he would be missing a military action to go for 2 modern armies if he... that is important in case I want to go for a second war against him. The first war will already net me some culture here. Lech develops the modern infantry, takes the patriotism. He has to be a bit careful here. And with that, he can't take the fast food chains, meaning that at my turn, I will indeed be able to go for the fast food chains myself, because Majondor can't take it away. Lech will increase his population, builds the team sports, is now again more competitive in strength, takes the mechanized agriculture and the democracy. And Majondor has found a war for himself now, declares it against wolves, with that he is actually losing a bit of strength because the promise of military protection is cancelled. He goes for the fundamentalism, which is certainly not ideal for him because he just went for democracy at the turn before, but maybe he figures that going for that war is still the best that he can do. He develops the fundamentalism, increases his population 2 times, builds a cannon, builds 2 swordsmen, is now at 68 strength, builds the step of the internet, uses the engineering genius 2, still has no corruption issues, and with that he has enough resources to finish the internet, but it won't be the biggest one. It will probably end up just being at 13 culture if he doesn't get any additional resources from somewhere. Now it is my turn. I first of all will steal some culture from wolves, and wolves can't really defend against the second war from me. If I go for another air force, I will then have even more strength than Majondor has right now. And so of course I will go for that war. Lech can just defend himself too well, and also if I take the fast food chains plus another card from the row, the age will end, meaning wolves also can't resign. So it's just best for me to go for another war against wolves here. And at this point I was looking at the culture score and I was thinking, wait a minute, maybe I can actually win this game. Because we can maybe see I can build an air force here. I'm at 70 strength. Both Majondor and I have this war going against wolves. For now, I don't know exactly how much strength wolves will be able to go for. But no matter how much he will go for, I will always get 2 more culture than Majondor. I will get a bigger wonder than Majondor with the fast food chains. I will get a brigades bonus. I will also get I will lose 4 culture to Feminine the next turn, very likely, so that cancels out the Bill Gates bonus a little bit, but nonetheless, I will be going into the final standings with quite a big lead before Majondor. And when we take a look at Lech has a bit of a culture lead at the moment, but I will get the Nobel Prize this turn, so we have a similar amount of culture. I will get culture from a war and a wonder, and Lech won't be able to go for wonder. He has some strong impacts, but he has only seeded 1 into the deck because of him being stuck on 2 military actions for so long. He didn't draw that many cards, so maybe he doesn't have the best impacts to choose from. And so I thought maybe I can actually win this game. Maybe it's actually looking likely that I can win this game, and I couldn't really believe it considering how things have been looking like 3 or 4 turns ago. But at this point, I thought I might actually be able to win this game, and with realizing that, I also wanted to really make sure that I play this turn correctly to not ruin this potentially nice comeback that I might be achieving here. So I built this air force, I take the fast food chains, I need to make space in my hand, and I considered some different lines. I will make space in my hand with playing a revolutionary idea. I thought about taking the civil service, developing that, then developing the organized religion, having a Nobel Prize. I could take the endowment. I could do some different stuff, but what I came to realize is that I kind of have to take this copy of multimedia. I thought about taking civil service, developing it, and then taking multimedia, but then it's very unlikely that I can still score a Nobel Prize. The reason why I want to take this multimedia is that will mean that the Empire State Building is discarded on Wolf's turn. If it isn't, then Lech could take the Empire State Building, disband a swordsman, build a multimedia. With that he would overtake Majondor in science production, and he could finish the Empire State Building for 27 points. And that's just very big, and I also figured that Lech might be my biggest contender here. And so I decided that I have to take this multimedia, and I decided to miss out on the civil service. Instead, I will just develop the multimedia, and I will develop the organized religion. Taking that earlier has now actually paid off. I can score that Nobel Prize, and at the next turn maybe go for one more H3 tech in case there's an impact of technology in the game, but I won't be able to go for another Nobel Prize. And now at my next turn I can maybe push that impact of population. Of course I will also get one draw, and yeah, I was now really excited to see, will I actually be able to turn this game around and somehow win it at the end? I draw a hybrid war, but I won't be able to go for that. The age ends. It's of course also important to achieve that so that wolves can't resign, or he loses Napoleon, misses out on a military action. Wolf seeds, the prosperity is revealed. I was happy to see that because it means that I actually don't have famine at the next turn. It also means that maybe my opponents can increase their population in additional time, which might give them 2 points for the impact of population, but overall it's still better for me as I get basically 4 additional culture with not having famine. Wolves this turn builds some professional sports, doesn't even go for the tanks, maybe doesn't have the modern army tactic available, maybe just wanted to threaten it, or maybe just found that this turn is maybe better, as he can't go for 2 modern armies anyway. And he goes for another Napoleonic army tactic and is now at 52 strength, takes the endowment. Now it's Lech's turn, he goes for the civil service, scores 3 more culture with Einstein, builds some multimedia, upgrades some swordsmen to modern infantry, plays the patriotism, destroys a lab, builds another multimedia, takes the patriotism, plays the patriotism, destroys a farm, builds some more units there, maybe in order to just be able to defend himself, to not get hit by an aggression. Interestingly, he's destroying the farm, which could be an indicator that he maybe has some knowledge about impact of agriculture. Maybe he's also just taking the risk though. Impact of balance also doesn't look likely now. Majondor steals some culture from wolves, and I was fearing that maybe if wolves doesn't defend that much, it could be that Majondor steals that much culture away that there's not enough culture for me to steal, but no, I mean wolves just played the best as he could and defended, and with that there is enough culture left for me to steal. Majondor seeds, the historic territory is now revealed that I've seeded earlier. I can't really bid for that, I would lose too much strength for the war. I would have loved to see it if wolves would have won it, making it that I steal even more culture from the war against him after the war against Majondor has now already finished. But at the end Majondor is the one winning it. At least he is sending 3 units away, that will cost him quite a bit for the impact of population, but of course he will still gain a net benefit from the 11 culture from the colony. He takes the military theory, develops it, plays the reserves, has now just enough resources left to finish the internet, but it's not the biggest one, he gets 13 points out of it. Now it's my turn, I will push the impact of population into the deck, but first of all I will steal 23 culture from wolves. I push the impact of population, and you might also remember the refugees that I've seeded, just for the 2 culture for pushing, hoping that I won't be weakest. Now I'm actually the strongest and get another 3 culture, I sadly don't have a population that I can gain. I build 2 steps of the fast food chain so that I have enough blue token left in my banks that I can play the reserves to build another step, to then use the engineering genius to finish the fast food chains for 23 points. Thanks to the prosperity I don't have any famine issues, and then the only thing that I can really do is then to develop the mechanized agriculture for potential impact of technology. That's basically all I can do, so there's nothing to think about here on the last turn. And I mean, we can maybe take a look at the final culture after Wolf's turn before the final impacts, but no, I am out of the sudden in not a bad spot, as you will see. Wolves will just do some stuff, and no, I have more than a 30 culture lead before the final impacts, and I will even still get the Bill Gates bonus, which is not that big, but with the Bill Gates bonus I have even almost a 40 culture lead against Lech and Majondor. I have a good impact in there, so yeah, at this point it's just looking like I will win this game. Lech and Majondor are very close. Wolves is of course way too much behind now, but yeah, let's see how that game will end. The first impact is my impact, the impact of population, giving me nice points against all of the opponents. Then there's the impact of government, giving me plus 19, Lech gets plus 22, Majondor also plus 22, so they have gotten the same out of the impact so far. Then there's the impact of colonies. That makes it that Majondor overtakes Lech here, is now at the second position. The last impact, however, is the impact of industry, and that's a big one for Lech, who is able to overtake Majondor again. And with that, yeah, I'm actually able to win this game at the end, even with the 32 culture lead before the second place. And if you would have asked me what I can maybe achieve after getting hit by the Dwarven territory, I would have thought that I just need to play for the third place or something here. I never ever would have thought that I will be able to win this game. And now I even win it with having a bit of a lead. So, yeah, how this game ended still feels a bit surreal for me. Because it came out of nowhere. I mean, the things just went perfectly for me. I got those wars, I got the tactic that I can copy. I didn't get hit by further aggressions when I was still vulnerable, or by another war or something. I could just build my classic armies with air forces, had 2 wars. There was one player who was vulnerable enough so that I got some culture from him. I had a bit of a culture lead towards Majondor anyway. He only managed to get 1 war going. He missed also out on some draws, admittedly so, but I also didn't have that many draws. It was definitely lucky that I had those 2 wars available early. Lech had only 2 military actions, couldn't take advantage of Wolf's weaknesses. He was able to defend himself, but didn't get a wonder. Maybe some difficulties taking it with having built that many with Michelangelos, which is then a bit of a downside in H3. And yeah, then out of the sudden I managed to win this game, which I never ever would have expected after getting hit by this war, then getting hit by another spy. But at the point when I saw the 2 wars, I thought maybe there's something possible. But it was basically only after declaring the second war, or being at the turn when I declared the second war, that I realized that, wait a minute, things are out of the sudden looking even good for me, which seemed just completely surreal and very weird to me. But yeah, with quite a bit of luck in H3, I somehow turned this game around. It was again during H2 I was very frustrated with Lech revealing the tactic, missing out on the cannons, especially with the other 3-player game that you have seen, moving parallel to that game, and I was playing in both games and I just got hit by aggressions and wars because I didn't take the cannons. And I do think if I would be in the same situation again in the turn when I didn't take the first copy of cannons, I would do the same thing again. I do think the Ocean Line and the Conmon were just too strong to take. But I was very annoyed that I then got heavily punished for it. And I thought I might just have a very bad start into the season, but I somehow did win this game at the end. So yeah, that is maybe one of the best comebacks that I maybe had in my time of playing through the ages. So I'm of course very happy about it. We can now also take a look at the standings. And we can also first take a look at some results from the other players. We have here a 4-player game that Fanta Black was able to win against Lech, Marta Pêcheur and Majondor. That was the game that we have just seen. And then there's another 4-player game finished. Marta Pêcheur was able to win that one very closely before Majondor. And then Elsifix and Wolves at the 3rd and 4th position. And yeah, with that, the standings are as follows. Marta Pêcheur's in the lead, but has already 3 games finished. So probably Fanta Black for the moment has the best position because he is only 1 point behind Marta, but has still 1 game more to play. Nonetheless, those 2 players are probably the one with the best start so far. However, with me winning that game now, I have also at least a solid start. 2 games, 6 points. I am in both directions. Everything is possible for me here. Lech also being at 6 points with 2 second places in 4-player games has the same position as I do. And then the other 3 players have all already 3 games finished, so they are probably one of the ones with the worst start here, Wolves being at 5 points, Majondor at 4, and Elsifix at 3. But overall, I would say it's relatively close, and so yeah, for all players, there's still a lot possible in both directions. And yeah, with that, we are at the end of the video. I wish you all happy and nice Christmas for all of you who are celebrating it. I mean, maybe you have seen a little bit of a Christmas miracle here on the channel today. And I have to see if I find the time to record another video this year. I will be at my family's, so I won't force anything. If I have some free time, maybe I will record one, but it could also be that you don't hear anything from me until the new year. So we will have to see that. So yeah, Merry Christmas. If you don't hear from me again, also a good start into the new year. And yeah, then have a nice time. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.